paint on there. And the paints are really fluid, so you'll notice unlike the Adirondack dabbers, where those and use it, they start to compress and flatten. These have no filler, so they're always going to stay wet. No, I mean, even in Arizona, I left mine open for a month just to test it. Yeah, you can see how fluid it is. Look at it is on metal. See how it starts to pull apart? So because like if you did regular paints and you did it on there, the whole thing is painted. This is going to allow me to actually blend and mix my paints while it's wet. But know that as soon as it dries, it's going to be permanent. So I can mix and create all sorts of kind of fun, even patina effects, just using paints. If I wanted to add some color, I can. Because you can play around with it while it's wet, but once it dries, we know it's going to be permanent.
Can you layer the paint?
You could, but keep in mind, because these are opaque, one color will cover the other. Which could be cool. Yeah, so if you're like, you know what, I hate that, I want it pink, great, let it dry and paint it pink. Yeah. And I just love the fact that I can, I mean, I don't mind going with my, I don't mind getting my fingers dirty anyway, but I like the fact that I can easily clean it up when I'm blending with it. I think that makes it really, really convenient. It will air dry, or you can heat dry it. You'll notice that this paint doesn't dry as quick as regular acrylic paints either, and that's because I wanted the open time, because I want to be able to stamp with it. I want to be able to put it on a stamp it, and still have time to clean it off the stamp. Otherwise, it'd be permanent on the stamp because it works on metal and plastic and glass. And you just get a great effect, and you don't have to worry about any of that kind of wearing off. It's got a great kind of chalky finish. It's weird stuff. It's very different. It's a water-based paint. It reacts with water, so you can get all those little blends. If I was going to do, let's say I was working on a collage. Maybe it was a canvas, maybe it was a card, maybe it was something even printed. So we could take tissue tape, it's got a print over it. If I was going to try to color it with something fluid, like stain, something fluid, of course, is going to wipe off it pretty quick. But if I go in with paint and just dab some of that on, now I can go in and blend this out. So if I just swipe over it, it's going to be opaque. But if I keep working this while it's wet, I can get some of those words to show through, because I get to control the level of opacity before it dries, just from blending it out. But once it dries, it's not going to re-wet. So once this dries, I can go back over it with distress ink, distress stain, and I don't have to worry about that color re-wetting. So I like that. I like that it's just giving us something different in the world of distress, giving us a whole layer of opacity. Really gives us a chance to kind of layer things. And if you're a stamper and you like to stamp with it, I'll show you how it stamps. It stamps really, really well. So there's my kind of painted surface.
Cleaning it off.
Only while it's wet. Once it dries, it's on your stamp. Unless you have a belt sander. And yeah. Like even like a solvent cleaner is not going to clean it up. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's really just about like, I don't use stamp cleaner, but for the record, Ranger makes fine stamp cleaners. But I don't use them. I just clean with water. I mean, any of my stamps. Like right now, I've got new stamps for the show, but I mean, if you see any of my videos, you know my stamps are pretty trash. I just wipe them off. And if I'm going to go to a light color, I would clean them with water or even a baby wipe. Because whatever comes off with water would be the only thing that would re-wet. So even though my image might be black, but I want to stamp in yellow, if I clean it with water, when I ink it with yellow, it's not going to transfer the black. The black is obviously waterproof. So, you know, if I was going to teach this in a class, I'd probably just have something simple like a baby wipe and just have them stamp into the baby wipe. That's going to get the paint off of it. So they don't have to sit there and, you know, scrub it. It's just about keeping it wet. So this, same thing. I can go over it if I wanted to just go over the whole thing, like with Distress Stain now. You're going to see that the paint will act as a resist. So the higher concentrated areas, the more the color is going to resist. If I wet this in areas, I can even get some of that to go right through and always bring my color back out. It's pretty cool. It is. It's just fun. I mean, we spent over a year in development on this paint because I knew I wanted it to do what I wanted it to do. I didn't want it just to be another paint. And I'm really happy with it. Because I know there's a lot of paints out there. There's a lot of other mediums, but I liked Adirondack dabbers, but I certainly struggled with some of the things I wanted him to do because I like to work with my inks and paints. I love to add water. I love to get that look. But you know, you can only do so much with a translucent medium because when you use so many colors of ink and you're wetting it, eventually you get brown, right? You're like, ooh, pick raspberry and moat on, and that's all great, but the more water you add, the more mixing, you're like, right, vintage photo, because that's what you have, right? This is your get. But here you really get those great colors, and you could still tone them down. You know, you could go over the whole thing with walnut stain to tone it down, because now we're dealing again with opaque mediums and translucent. So I mean, that's pretty cool. People are looking, they're like, you just can't tell that it's paint because you want to feel it, and you don't feel that tooth that you normally get with acrylic paint. That's what's great to me, because you really, I mean, for those of you that have it, you really should just swipe your finger over it. That's what's weird, because you're like, oh, I'm gonna expect to feel paint. You don't. It's like, there's nothing there.
What if you put it on something?
Like that keyhole? Yeah.
Is that grunge paper?
Yeah. Metal's great. Grunge paper, yeah, it's great on grunge.
And then if you wanted to have it for something flexible, would it stay flexible?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll show you. I could even do crinkle ribbon with paint.
Oh.
Without it being crunchy ribbon. Really?
There is a difference, you know.
Oh yeah, when you put paint on ribbon, it's crunchy ribbon.
Yes.
Yeah. So here I'm just going to blend this out with my finger. But you can see how I can even get some of that. Like I said, it's almost like a chalk when it's wet. You can get it to kind of smudge and create a cool effect. But I mean, you can see how saturated that is. And then it just comes right off. So let me show you stamping, because I keep talking about that.